The Stranger, Time of Stillness, Year 3.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what it means, but if I had to make a guess, it's something about the nature of divinity and the self. I'm pretty sure it's a windmill.
Boleslava replied gently as Koza paced around the large structure they had found, seemingly abandoned in this segment of forested ground. Though she had made noises about wanting to go investigate those artists, something else had been on the older woman's mind for quite some time, and Boleslava wasn't sure what it was. Still, she seemed as happy as she ever did, so that was nice. As had been seeing Binky. Anyway, this was new, and a little strange. It definitely was a windmill, but there wasn't anything it was connected to, and it hadn't been built together from any one kind of material, either. There were bricks, and slates, and bits of cut wood. Here it was, alone, fan blades of metal and ivory, spinning quietly and seemingly without purpose, and Koza had refused to budge from where she was looking up at it and pontificating. Possibly because there had been mild rains, and she was concerned that they had turned into less mild rains, the kind that'd sweep Boleslava away at a moment's notice if she wasn't careful.
Well, yeah, of course it's a windmill. But it's not being used for anything, and it's big, right, and that means someone or a lot of someone's put time and effort into it.
Eyes lost in concentration, Koza continued to walk around the base of the structure as it rolled contently overhead, the blades above creaking and dripping rain on the ground around them. Still, they were sheltered under here, and it was nice to just watch the raindrops fall. Boleslava liked these moments the best. With no place to go, and nothing to do immediately, there was no need to rush around and try to get things done. Other people could worry about dangers in the sky or other, less pleasant things. The peace you could find in a mild rain was a rare and precious thing.
Why, it really doesn't have a point, does it? Someone just built this to have it present. Well, I guess that's kind of a milestone, or something, but isn't it kind of lonely, too? Not really. Not everything is lonely, when it's alone.
Koza slowly pulled her hand from the surface of the windmill. Rich, red wood that looked as if it had come from a tree far more vibrant and alive than anything they had known back in the old world. Sighing, she stared up into the sky, and watched the rain fall as well.
Not everything, hey.
Then, chuckling, she lay back against the ground and smiled at Boleslava.
Probably not. Anyway, doesn't much bother me. Though, come to think of it, I really wouldn't mind something to eat besides marshmallows. Oh, no. Am I letting you down? Not at all. I think I might see if I can't hunt for something later. That ozone-smelling place seemed promising, didn't it? Not particularly. You've gotta live more adventurously. When the air is thick enough that you could cut it with a pair of scissors, that's when something promising is going to happen. Where the world feels like it's dangling from high-tension wire. That's where fates live and die.
Shutting her eyes, Koza laughed lazily, her teeth clattering a little bit, and Boleslava realized that the older woman was probably a little cold. Fretting, she managed to gather some leaves and blades of grass, but they didn't really work as a blanket, much to Boleslava's disappointment.
Thank you kindly. I think I'm just going to take a nap, for a little bit.
Boleslava's eyes widened and she hopped from tiny foot to tiny foot, but her worry turned out to be completely unfounded as the sounds of arguments drawing closer instantly sent Koza dashing to her feet. She had a wry, wide smile on her face that matched the tone of her fingers as she snapped them through the damp air.
Darn. I was thinking that if I just looked weak and tired, I might get lucky and get a handsome prince or something. Still, travelers are travelers. Do you think we can trade them our winning smiles for a ride somewhere? HRMN.
Chirping in response, Boleslava tried to hide her mild annoyance that Koza had been feigning such a dire condition, but unfortunately mild annoyance wasn't really a depressing thought, even if she could have erased her own.
Maybe. But only if they're friendly. Let's try to avoid making friends with bad people, okay?
Koza didn't respond, and was already gallivanting over to the familiar travelers with long strides.
Yeah. Been some time, you two. That old man of yours still keeping you bound, hand and foot and all that? Hand and talon and foot.
Oh. Well. Boleslava puffed up in further mild irritation. Not because she disliked Mr. Mammon and Crimsolino. Well, Crimsolino was a little hard to deal with after a while, but because if they were around, that creepy old man was probably around, too. Right? A weird feeling came over her as she noticed both the harpy and the demon giving each other peculiar looks. Mr. Mammon's face twisted into that expression halfway between a smile and a wince, uncertain and trying to hide it. Crimsolino, however, went completely blank, if only for a moment.
Pa. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost sweet Leopold, if only for now. Given how magnanimous he is, perhaps you were seeking his services out, as well. Ah, goodness, Nap. Just taking a walk in the rain, and looking for something to eat. That being said, I'd be glad to chip in to your noble cause, if Boleslava doesn't mind. I do mind.
Boleslava tried to cross her arms and failed, regretting immensely that she could do naught but wobble in a semi-threatening manner.
Oh, well, it can't be helped then. I'm afraid we're going to have to stick around on our lonesome without food and only our own friendship to rely on. Until the moon goes high and I die of hunger and malnutrition, I wager.
And so it was that the four found themselves perched under the windmill, Boleslava occasionally frowning very seriously at Koza, though unable to remain angry. For one, though the harpy was really mean and abrasive, Mr. Mammon wasn't so bad. For example, despite complaining that they, too, had been doing rather poorly, it seemed that the demonic merchant had found some peculiar beige burgundy fruits and despite the occasional cluck of disapproval from Crimsolino, seemed quite intent on sharing them. For a fair price, of course.
You wouldn't believe the trouble the two of us went through to get these. We probably fought through hordes of abominations from beyond time, all intent on keeping us from our own dear friend. Back me up, Crim. It was a terrible thing. Dear Mammon fought with such candor I feared for his life. I served with no small amount of bravery myself, I might add. So, you'll understand us if I can't afford to part with them for less than 10 pieces of, gold.
Scratching his chin, Mammon gave a half-hearted shrug upon realizing there wasn't really any unified currency they had found in the place, besides Leo's aborted attempt to mint coins of estate.
20 pieces.
The stranger replied with a shrewd smirk. Mammon continued to scratch his chin, this time in genuine confusion instead of folksy affectation.
That's not really how this works. All right, you got me. 50 sound good. What the heck are you saying? Do you even have anything with you, or are you just messing with a humble shopkeeper? Just a little bit, but I imagine I've got something more valuable I can trade with the two of you, and that'll make amends with my own dear friend.
Koza cast a gaze towards Boleslava, who stared back at her in apprehension. It was a strange smile that the older woman had, but not unfriendly. Boleslava had come to think of it as her problem-solving face, even if it sometimes just led to more problems, down the line. Taking her hands from her pockets and scattering them into the, mildly, drizzling air, Koza stepped into the rain, and then stepped back, surprised at just how much had begun to fall. Perhaps it wouldn't remain so mild, after all?
Ow, ow, that stuff stings. I meant to say, the gift of friendship. And tall tales, but I think that being separated from a man as refined as that Leo probably weighs on the two of you. So why not sit with us a spell, crack open those mysterious-looking fruits, and take a load off?
Her smile was broad, sloppy, and a little infectious, and it didn't take much for Mr. Mammon to relent. He hadn't planned on hoarding anything, anyway. The rain began to fall more forcefully, the sound gently careening against the possibly purposeless windmill as it slowly spun in place. Soon, the fruits were split 4 ways. They were dry and smelled faint and unappetizing, but caught the rainwater well, and their taste was better than their appearance, for the soft violet flesh tasted of autumn squash. Boleslava had to admit that it was nice eating something more regular than prairie grass, not that anyone else would try something like that.
To be honest, we've been saving these for a while. Glad to find out they're not poisonous. The last couple I tried were kinda iffy.
Mammon and Koza alike laughed raucously, either immune or inured to the idea of death by a potentially poisonous fruit. Boleslava was surprised to see Crimsolino looking at her with a great deal of sympathy, and perhaps a tiny bit of apprehension, too, but such was the way the harpy carried herself.
Is it her manner to always be like this? A little.
Boleslava confided cautiously.
It's nice, actually. She doesn't get down easily.
Which meant that she didn't show it when she felt down. Not generally. Koza kept her emotions under her sleeve, and so maybe it was only natural she got along so well with Mr. Mammon. With most people she met. Boleslava wasn't entirely certain she liked it. She didn't dislike many people, either. But sometimes, keeping your emotions under wraps was a quick way to dampen them into something more unpleasant than the ability to erase unhappiness could handle.
He's been quite concerned himself, recently. I do not think we know where we're going. I scout ahead for signs of our sweet Leopold, but it seems he may not want to be found, perhaps.
The rain continued to fall, and Boleslava realized that it wasn't haughtiness that the harpy wore against her face, but exhaustion. She was uneasy against the ground, teetering from talon to talon as if she might fall over at any time. It was a cautious weakness, too, shielded away from the light and hidden under a facade of strength. One that couldn't afford to be seen in a woman as distant as Crimsolino, even if she was a harpy. Perhaps it was all a little sad, but Boleslava had some experience dealing with sorrow, even if it were usually easier to deal with.
I'm sure you'll find him if you keep looking. No one wants to be lost forever. Millimeter. And anyway, this rain has to let up eventually, and that'll probably clear the skies right up, and make for perfect weather to look for lost friends.
Crimsolino shook her head, and droplets of rainwater scattered in every direction. They only served to make her grimace look more predatory. But it wasn't just a grimace, but a smile. Having all those extra teeth really must be a burden, Boleslava decided.
Oh, of course. Have no fear. Didn't mean to sound as if I doubted the certainty of our quest, and Mammon has quite the nose for these things. Sweet Leopold has a taste for the exquisite, and I cannot imagine that he made it too far on his own. He is not.
They were quiet again, and Boleslava gave the harpy a tiny pat on the wing.
It'll be okay.
And somehow, even as she said it, Boleslava felt, genuinely, that it would. Silence passed, and both became aware of the conversation between Mr. Mammon and Koza, Mammon speaking quite passionately about the newly constructed windmill serving as their resting place against the, still mild, but rather cold, rain.
I don't know though. I've got the distinct feeling that anyone who would build a structure like this is trying to make a kind of, a symbolic statement. It's not just a sign of empire or something like that. See, when some guy we knew built stuff like this, it was all towers and spires. Dominance of the fields and all that. Crim. Back me up.
Crimsolino's eyes jolted open from where she had been looking, slightly rested and content, lids blinking twice in surprise in an attempt to look alert.
Yes, oh, well, a moment.
Ruffling her feathers and detaching from Boleslava's tiny embrace, Crimsolino trotted up to the windmill, giving it a derisive stare.
Monuments are a sign of power. If you desire to rule over a place, you must show that you mean it. A citadel or palace should be constructed of heavy materials, uniform in nature. I don't know why someone would create such a mill without grain nor HRMN.
An amused tone crept into Crimsolino's voice. She was, after all, an aesthete, and though it was made by primitive hand, there was still an artistic value to the thing. The multiple materials were scavenged and not local to the area, which suggested a kind of unity of vision, and the seeming pointlessness of its intended function struck defiantly against the backdrop of thin trees, reaching towards the sky. It was probably built to provide comfort to travelers, but also to say, this too was a thing that existed, in a place that existed, and when it is gone, that shall be fine as well, but for now, but for here you may find refuge. Aloud, she said.
I rather like it. I would not have it in my palisade of course, but in an exterior garden I could imagine something like this being nice, and certainly not an eyesore. And there you have it. Krim knows what she's talking about, trust me on this one.
Mr. Mammon looked quite proud of his companion, and it wasn't hard to see that the two had been through a lot. Indeed, the stranger had a very specific look in her eye. It was rather odd, too, and not entirely a look that suggested she was going to solve a problem, or really do much of anything. It was inquisitive, however, and was looking for something, and what that was, Boleslava couldn't say.
So I see. Well, where are the two of you going to go looking for Leopold? I might tag along for a bit, if you don't mind. It's easier to travel in groups, and I'm a good companion. I don't need too much, I'll do field work for you. No thanks.
Koza balked, agape. Crimsolino also looked mildly confused, long neck crooned to the side. Mr. Mammon didn't budge though, his smile polite, but somewhat distant.
Not that I haven't appreciated talking about the finer points of windmills with you, but this is our goal, not yours. I'd hate to drag someone else into it, and to be honest, the boss isn't the easiest guy to deal with. Hey, but I wouldn't slow you down, and honestly I'm not too easy to deal with myself. Promise you, you won't even notice I'm here. Again, no thanks. I like traveling with Krim just fine. We might meet again though, and I'm sure that'd be great. I'll try to see if we can't have something proper for you to haggle over next time, though I'm hoping you'll put a bit more effort into it.
His tone was jovial enough, but final. And soon, the two were off, and Boleslava was quite happy to see that Crimsolino looked much happier, too. Perhaps it was all it took to know that someone enjoys the pleasure of your company, and perhaps she had helped a little bit, herself. She turned back to Koza, and her face was rent. The wrinkles she had were drawn out, lips splayed between a smile and a frown. Hands stuffed into her pockets, it looked as if she might continue to fume, if that was even the right word. For although she wasn't sad, or depressed, or even angry, whatever was there, it wasn't normal, and Boleslava had no idea how to react at all. Then, Koza sighed and kicked some grass under her foot.
Well, shoot. That would have been too easy though, wouldn't it, Boleslava? What would have? Being a good friend, perhaps. You were right, I think. We probably shouldn't have spent so much time around those two, hey? I think I ate a few too many of those mysterious fruits, aha, ha ha ha.
And then whatever it was had passed, and she was joking. Genuinely joking, too. Boleslava relaxed a little, and crawled onto the stranger's back. Koza reached up and gave her a soft pat, even as she sighed again, this time a little more softly.
It's just kind of hard to figure out what you're supposed to do when you're torn in multiple directions. Wandering isn't easy, but neither is owning up to what you feel is worth doing, especially when all you want to do is sit and watch the rain fall. Well, can't we just do that? I don't mind eating prairie grass. Neither do I. But, well.
Humming an unfamiliar song, Koza held one hand out into the rain, and seemingly satisfied with something, stepped out into after draping her jacket over the both of them like an impromptu and rather ragged coat.
It'd be a shame for lazy days like these to have to come to an end, wouldn't it?
Chapter end.